Yes.
I have to say now, I don't want to be in the middle of you boys, so
All right.
I just want to. No, I really don't
Should we
like
take that personally?
Team behind Ned's. Well, I did have some questions and they got kind of blown out of the water because it was 30% of what happened in the. You said 30% of what happened in the film is real, Peter. I'm hoping it's the first 40% of 40 minutes of the film. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that would be fairly accurate.
Or was there bits in there that you kind of mined, that you looked at and thought?
Everybody kept asking, was it autobiographical? And I'd always said no, it was personal, which was a phrase borrowed from Dennis Potter, who once said about Sign Detective that it was personal but not autobiographical. But they kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Is it? How much of it is? How much it isn't? So I came up with a figure of 30%, 70%. Then of course they say, yeah, but which part of it's the 30%? Which part's the 70%? Most of it is complete fiction. Some of the family stuff is in and around things that did happen and things that I heard as a child. And the rest of it, as I say, is fiction. Right. There's a couple of bits. The stuff at school is I was held back because I had a bad big brother, and I felt unfairly punished because I was quite a swotty little kid, and I hung around with a middle class kid over the summer because I was told to hang around with. A teacher said to me, hang around with people of equal intelligence, which even at the sprightly age of 13 I thought was a bit elitist, to say the least. But that's what I did, and went to his door one day with a Provi check, a pair of football boots. He was at the window and his mother said, don't come here anymore, which absolutely blew me away. And on going back home, if I took a right turn, I would have avoided the swing park. But I took a left turn. Why I did that, I have no idea. Past the swing park, they jumped on me, they said we're going to do you in. They found out I was connected and they asked me to join them. And for the next year, I was barely at school. I just decided this is a far more interesting place to be. So sadly, it was also a more violent place to be.
Yeah. So Lenny, can I ask you the same question?
Sorry for that.
I'm pleading the fifth on this one. It's got nothing to do with it.
But how because you were obviously casting potential people that you kind of remember that are collected over the years. How did that work?
That made it my job so much easier because Peter when we went through each character, he would say, well, that's Mr. So-and-so from school. And he'd say, right, I know who that is. So I knew where the essence of the character was. And, so that made finding the people. Most of the gang were all amalgams of different guys that he ran about with and guys that I ran about with. So it was quite easy to find them that way.
So, go on, sorry.
The hardest one to find was obviously Connor, who plays the lead.
No, Baba.
Because when I got given the script, I really just laughed. It was originally one actor was to play both ages. So this guy had to start at 12 and finish at 16, and his journey's colossal. So I said to Peter, this is a 35-year-old, we need to play this. So I started looking for midgets. This was never going to happen. To find somebody with that maturity, it was just so difficult. Peter got the brilliant idea to split the characters, which for my end of things made things possible. It made the impossible possible by suddenly being able to have two boys play the same role. And then that allowed us to get Connor, who could never have played the younger John, but he plays the older John wonderfully, as you saw. Hopefully he's all saw the same as I saw. The boy's a genius, as is the young boy. He did a great job, and they had a similar physique.
Which one did you cast first? Which one
Connor.
came first?
Connor.
Right, and then worked for the younger one.
Yeah.
And what did you see? What did you see in him when you were casting that?
They were asked to do.
Because he's not acted before, is that
No,
right? He's not.
none of them had. They had a very simple task. There's a line in the film, I don't know if you remember it, it's where he says, I don't want to fight you because I'd kill you. And I found that very poignant, and I thought if they can do that, they can they've got a chance that they'll maybe do the rest of the arc. So we looked at that one bit and asked everybody, we got a big bulky actor in to challenge them to fight, and they had to say, no, I'm not going to fight with you because I would kill you. And say it and mean it. Connor meant it. He frightened me. It was, and then we workshopped them for nearly 8 weeks. Nobody was chosen immediately. They were then shortlisted. Peter was given cards, like a deck of cards that he carried around for 6 weeks, and each night, at the end of the day, Peter had to sit and look and say, right, he fits here, and we did it that way.
Right. So, because I think casting is absolutely crucial as well, particularly with young actors when they're not professional actors, they haven't worked before. So, was there a point where you got in the film and you just thought, Christ, what have we done here? How did you get around that? How come they weren't spooked or freaked by that performance?
The workshop process, we had a Saturday club that they called the Fight Club, where they were taught how to fight without injuring anybody. They were taught basic skills, no acting workshops. It was all team bonding. We did a lot of that. We had great fun. These were a nice bunch of lads, and they all got on with each other. And so when it came to filming, there was nobody really spooked at all. They were really quite just dying to go, dying to get paid.
Yeah. Money plays a big part in acting.
What I thought was great was that attention to detail. There was one point, and I'm assuming I'm wrong, but I'm sure I saw Fergal Sharkey out the undertones in the toilet at one scene. He just had that look to him, and you just it's really capturing the moment.
If you look really closely, there's a pirate DVD apparently at the moment, so you can freeze frame it if you like. There's a few sort of faces that you see that you would have sworn were of that time.
Right.
You know.
And how important was that 70s to it? Because it obviously added to the budget.
It was expensive. A lot of the money went on costumes, cars. Cars are expensive. Finding locations where you didn't have all the park. Glasgow's changed so much, thankfully, in the last 40 years. Crap from a filmmaker's point of view, but from a social, political point of view, thank God it's changed. But it's changed almost unrecognisably. There's very few places you can find and actually pan round. Normally you've just got to lock your camera off and that's all you can look at. But in terms of the actual period itself, I didn't want any of that nonsense like, oh look, there's an MB bar. You know, I couldn't be arsed with any of that kind of stuff. It was to be evocative, it was to be more impressionistic rather than historically accurate. A guy dug me up the other night, nice fella. I met him in a bar and he said, I enjoyed the film, but I've been in the Clenny all my days, and that was a Victoria dustbin that those kids were sitting in. And as I'm sure you realise, Peter, Victoria dustbins did not come into being until 1976. And I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, is your film not set between 1972 and 1974? So moments like that, and I said to the gentleman, no offence, I couldn't give a monkey's toss. My kids and I don't watch my language, because I was never ever interested in that. I never have been. Whenever I watch a period film, I'm not. If a film draws attention to that, it reduces itself. Whereas films, it should be there and it should be as accurate as you can make it, but it really should speak to the here and now. History is how one generation look at another. That is what history is. It's what one generation find of importance in another. So if you draw too much importance to that, then the people who are looking at it become less interested.
It also takes you out of the film, doesn't it? It also highlights
it.
It
Becomes indulgent.
It
becomes it's bollocks, to be absolutely honest. You know, it's just indulgent. If it's all about how many buttons were they wearing in their shirt, and honestly, I couldn't care less. I really couldn't care less.
How important was it for you, Graeme, as trying to capture in that mood and that period?
I think the worst thing was things like double glaze and satellite dishes, but I'm easy because I can just Photoshop and crop things out and clone, so painting sash windows and things, so it's much easier. So, but a nightmare for Mark especially was trying to find these places which are, and get people to take the satellite dishes down and cover them up or chuck nets over cars that are parked in spaces that...
We got rid of most of them through CGI. Through computers you can get rid of satellite dishes. 5 years ago you couldn't do that.
So for me it was odd because I grew up in Glasgow right through the 70s, so it was literally getting back in time. It was like a kind of flashback every day. You walk around and think, God, the classrooms haven't changed at all, you know, and think it's a set, right? Or the corporation bus pools up green, white and gold. You think, and you think it's normal. That's the scariest part. But you slide back into that zone.
Yeah. So was there ever a conversation you could set it some other time? You could set it in.
To
save money and to.
Yeah. That got brought up a couple of times. It was never it was no interest to me, because the whole point of the project was a sort of Brechtian approach, which was, if you can look at history, you have a certain objectification of it, so you don't get tied up with the paraphernalia and all the rest. So if you set it in the here and now, then you could we shot it in 2009. By 2011, when you released the film, then the mobile phones the kids would be using in 2009 would have changed by 2011. So it becomes about paraphernalia. So if you put something in recent history, I'm not saying, by the way, you can't look at the contemporary, but if this particular issue, if you set it in the here and now, it becomes distracting. Whereas if you give it, like, all my kids described it as the old days, which obviously from our point of view is slightly offensive. It's like, so Peter, in the old days, or olden days as they called it, in the olden days, like recording obviously and needles and stuff was, I mean, the thing they found hardest to get grips with, and they didn't believe, was teachers smoking. They were all the kids in the film were convinced I'd just made that up. And it's like, guys, I couldn't make that up. Jesus, I'm cutting out the land like they were all drinking at the back of the class. You know what I mean? I'm just showing the smoking. I'm even showing the drinking those bastards were doing.
The TV. Remember, there was a TV that had a slot. I don't know if there's anybody remembers slot TVs. We used to put 10p's in to get half an hour of TVs. They could not figure out what that was for.
No,
not one. That was half the crew.
I mean, they really didn't get it. So I mean, to put it in what I would regard as recent history for my kids was ancient history. Like I say, it allows you to look at the issues more clearly, in theory.
Yeah. So how important was humour to it? Because there was incredible humour in there. There was, you know.
Yeah. Hope so.
Audience was laughing. How important was that to your story when you were writing it?
I just like it. It's truth. It's reality. Some people find it hard to deal with. I mean, they found it hard to deal with in Orphans and stuff, and Magdalene Sisters. It's, why are you changing tone? Why is that bit funny? It should all be grim. Yeah, it's a fair comment. It's not true of the reality that I know. Now, whether that's a peculiarly Scots thing or whatever, I have no clue, and I don't care. It's the reality of life that I've seen is that there is the possibility of humour regardless of circumstance. Be it a funeral, be it a murder, be it whatever, horrific things. Whether it's a Scots thing, I don't know, or a Scots-Irish thing, or a Celtic thing. For me, it's a human thing, is you can find the humour in just about anything, and usually it's at the darkest moments.
I mean, certainly, I think everyone let out that collective sigh of release in the bit in the safari park at the end, because that's exactly what certainly I needed.
It's a gag.
Just that break in it.
Yeah, you need to. It's not just there to put. I don't like serious. Obviously, my background's theatre. I don't like it when you just put sugar on the pill. That annoys me. That's patronising bollocks. It has to come from the situation and from the characters, and it has to be reasonably credible. And I think it's more than reasonably credible that a youngster, when challenged by an adult in a safari park, would genuinely say, as was told to me, that's a true story, as was told to me, you know, when nobody touch your fucking lions. I think that's amusing, you know, and I think it's very true, you know, because as far as those kids were concerned, look, the lions are safe, we're not going to touch them, you know.
So do you find that happens a lot? People will wander up and drop you a story and you'll work it in, or is it just, right?
Yeah. Usually it's just, I just make it up. But yeah, every so often somebody will come up. The lad with the two knives at the end, that was a story told to me by Martin Compson. And I was telling him I was writing a thing called Ned's, and he told me a story about a lad in Greenock who had taped two knives to his hands, and he challenged the other gang, and he took them all on because they couldn't knock the knives out of his hands. The minute he told me that story, it was in, because the image of that for me was perfect. It's what has become an extension of what? Is he an extension of the knives, or the knives the extension of him? And also, how does he get out of the room, and how does he get back home? You know what I mean?